Jesus' first public miracle, he turned water into wine. And it wasn't the new wine, it was the alcoholic stuff. Jesus is like, this is wine, the symbol of the new covenant. Do this in remembrance of me, where he commands the world to drink wine. Jesus, after that, says, I won't drink it again until heaven, which means wine is in heaven. We need not be embarrassed about alcohol when the Lord has given it as a gift to mankind. It is absolutely responsible for saving the lives of millions and millions of people all throughout human history. Let me explain. 1 Timothy 5. Paul commands Timothy and to tell other people, don't drink water only. Spike it with some alcohol for the sake of your stomach and your frequent ailments. I wonder why we have such a cultural blind spot spiritually within the church where we decry all alcohol as evil and wrong, even though 1 Timothy says, use alcohol. Jesus says, do this in remembrance of me. Jesus' first miracle was to turn water into wine. Psalm is showing you that it's a gift to mankind and we're all still too spiritual for it. And, well, alcohol is dangerous. I'm like, yeah, well, it was dangerous in that time too. I guess I don't want to be bullied by a cultural phenomenon that is in 21st century evangelicalism to be embarrassed about a key important symbol of the Bible that's also been responsible for saving the lives of millions and millions of people throughout
First of all, I think he raises some valid points. In modern Christian conversation, the Bible does not explicitly condemn alcohol. Jesus turned water into wine at the wedding in Cana. And sometimes people argue that the wine wasn't alcoholic. However, if you read the story carefully, the master of the banquet said, people usually serve the best wine first and then bring out the cheaper wine after the guests are drunk. That statement only makes sense if the wine being discussed was alcoholic. So it is difficult to argue that Jesus turned water into grape juice. We also see wine being used during the Last Supper as a symbol of the new covenant. And Paul also advised Timothy to take a little wine for his stomach and frequent illness. So, biblically speaking, alcohol itself is not presented as sinful. I think the real issue is misuse. Food is not evil by itself. It's the misuse of food through gluttony that becomes sinful. In the same way, alcohol is not necessarily evil by itself. It's the misuse of alcohol through drunkenness that the scripture repeatedly warns against. In fact, food gives us a useful comparison. Most people don't talk about gluttony as much because the body naturally limits how much food we can consume. Eventually, your body says enough, but alcohol works differently. By the time your body reaches its limit, you are already seriously intoxicated and unable to make wise decisions. That is why alcohol can be far more dangerous if abused. Another challenge about alcohol is that the point at which you get intoxicated is not always the same. The amount of alcohol that may have affected you yesterday could affect you differently today. Factors such as body weight, how much you have eaten, your level of fatigue, medications, hydration, and even your overall health can influence your tolerance. Some may think they are exercising self-control because 1 or 2 drinks did not get them drunk on a previous occasion, only to discover that that same amount affected them very differently another day. This is one of the many reasons alcohol can be difficult to manage purely through discipline and self-control. Because of this reality, I understand why many churches choose to teach complete abstinence. When you are speaking to thousands of people with different levels of maturity, discipline, and self-control, it is often easy to say don't drink at all than to teach every individual where moderation ends and drunkenness begins. Where I think confusion sometimes comes in is when people move from saying it is wise not to drink to saying alcohol itself is a sin. Those are 2 different statements. One is a matter of biblical wisdom and caution. The other is a matter of individual or personal doctrine. In the book of Corinthians, Apostle Paul spoke about giving up certain freedom for the sake of others and for the advancement of the gospel. He explains that although some things might be permissible, he is willing to refrain from them if they could cause others to stumble. I think this is often the perspective many pastors are coming from. They are not necessarily saying alcohol itself is sinful, but for many people, the risk might outweigh the benefit, and abstinence might be the wiser path. So for me, the biblical conversation shouldn't be, is alcohol sinful? The better question is, even if alcohol itself is not a sin, are the potential spiritual risk of drunkenness worth the temporary benefits that drinking provides? That's where I believe the real question should be. I hope this message has blessed someone. Have a great day.